Maybe well sutuleum, puedo curtir fuego. Maybe well sutuleum, puedo curtir chine kino kwa shalamayo, banalo tu kwa shalamayo, puedo pega la buata, owe kwa shalamayo, yangu kwa shalamayo, puedo pega la buata embere. Maybe well sutuleum, puedo curtir fuego. Maybe well sutuleum, puedo curtir chine kino kwa shalamayo, banalo tu kwa shalamayo, puedo pega la buata, owe kwa shalamayo, yangu kwa shalamayo, puedo pega la buata embere. Yarile ya mulanda, yari abatata bamulenda.
Between the 2nd and the 16th of December 2015, slightly over 100 men and women drawn from different sections of Zambia met at the Grand Palace Hotel in Lusaka to discuss the state of unsafe abortions in the country and what steps needed to be taken to address the scourge. Organized by Zambia Medical Association ZAMBIA and dubbed stakeholder engagements, participants were drawn from the traditional establishment, parliament, political parties, civil society, religious organizations, government ministries, and quasi-government bodies. ZMA, the official representative of doctors practicing within the borders of Zambia, was seeking a nationwide view that should inform an effective response to the current practice of unsafe abortions.
What has driven us to do this is because the number of people who are coming to us already having damaged themselves, some of them unfortunately dying, is a lot. And we have decided for ourselves, after we looked at the continuum of events, that doctors, we are always at the very end of the event. People come to us, either they are already pregnant, or they have already done something to themselves, and they are about to die, and we save some and we lose some. Meaning that for us as doctors, we are not very strong in preventing these issues. So we decided, okay, fine, let's go and involve other stakeholders who are stronger than us in these other areas.
Sometime in 2014, members of the association met as medical practitioners and emerged with a common position on the matter.
As an association, we looked at abortion and the impact that abortion has on the health, especially the health of women. We took an initiative as an association. We had a meeting of experts on this subject, mostly the gynecologists, people that look at law, and all spheres that govern issues related to abortion. So we had this meeting at Prota Hotel across here, and we came up with a position as an association. And this association we shared with the Ministry of Health and the government at large. Because as you know, these issues need to be governed by laws, okay? Especially a hot topic like abortion.
At the beginning of the stakeholder engagements, Zambia Medical Association defined what abortion meant and what a miscarriage also meant. In everyday ordinary usage, non-medical practitioners differentiate the two.
The delivery by force, maybe the time hasn't reached for delivery, but once does not want to have that baby, then she forces it out.
Abortion, just abort itself means you stop or you leave. It's a method of extraction, so to speak, or removal of unborn products of conception. We don't know at this time whether it's still a baby or not a baby, but when we abort, you stop it and remove it, have it removed. That is the, that is how I understand it.
For medical practitioners, the two words, abortion and miscarriage, mean one and the same thing.
When we say termination of pregnancy, basically it is just the end. Whether the end has come by will or naturally, it is just the end.
One participant told fellow participants that her cousin divorced when he discovered that the hospital discharge form for his wife indicated that she had aborted. In his understanding, his wife had purposely tampered with pregnancy. The participant asked that doctors address their terminology so that it is acceptable in the eyes of an ordinary person.
Now, going back to your churches, even yourselves, you are at a point of knowledge. If people come with that dispute, you explain that no, from medical sense, this is the language. Language, if I say abortion and miscarriage here, again I will be discriminating. Who has had a miscarriage and what does it mean? Who has had a... It's the same thing for us.
Chapter 304 of the laws of Zambia makes abortion legal and describes the circumstances under which the service may be provided to those in need.
That the continuance of the pregnancy would involve the risk to the life of the pregnant woman. That is the first condition. That if the three medical doctors form that opinion in good faith and say that they think that the continuance of the pregnancy would involve a risk to the life of the pregnant woman greater than if the pregnancy were terminated, that is one ground. The next ground is that if the three medical practitioners make an opinion that there is risk, that continuance of the pregnancy would involve risk of injury to the physical or mental health of the pregnant woman, greater than if the pregnancy were terminated. That is also another ground. In fact, there's a third ground as well, which is that if the continuance of the pregnancy would involve risk of injury to the physical or mental health of any existing children of the pregnant woman. And there's a fourth one, which is the last, that if there's a substantial risk that if the child were born, it would suffer from such physical or mental abnormalities as to be seriously handicapped.
As a matter of fact, the law on abortion in Zambia has been described by some observers as one of the most liberal pieces of legislation on the subject. They say the failure to enjoy legal abortion services may be attributed to procedural or administrative matters.
So if as pastors, it's quite obvious to me at least that the law in Zambia is very liberal when it comes to provision of abortion, safe abortion services. Of course, there are caveats in this law. For example, that not all medical practitioners, even in this country, agree with the termination of a pregnancy for any reason. And the law protects them. The law says that the health practitioners, and this is a paraphrased version, the health practitioners reserve the right to conscientious objection in any termination of pregnancy treatment. However, that the conscientious objection relates to an individual, not to an institution, such that all government-supported or government health facilities in this country, for instance, are obliged to offer the termination of pregnancy.
Reacting to the presentation by Dr. Chisele regarding the Zambian legal framework on abortion, it became clear that the majority of participants were not aware that abortion could be procured legally in Zambia. It was this lack of information that led to police arrests of those that sought the service in some parts of Zambia.
One doctor at Mbala General Hospital took it upon himself to raise the police. Please stop arresting these young girls. Because that used to happen that when they rush the hospital, immediately they recover, they are taken to police. And their friends hear about it, that it's a criminal offense to abort. And if they have a complete abortion, they avoid and they end up dying. They avoid going to the hospital because they'll be arrested. When he did this, when he talked to the police and they stopped doing that, I'm told that there was a very high uptake of young ladies reporting to the hospital, either with incomplete abortions or asking for abortions, because they're no longer afraid. The news spread quickly.
Some participants wondered whether promoting legal abortions was not going to open a Pandora box with all and sundry terminating pregnancies for all sorts of reasons.
Sometimes there's an understanding that if we sensitize people or if people know these services are available, the numbers will go up. The numbers will go up in terms of statistics because everyone who was going now to grandmothers is coming to the health facility, but the number overall remains the same. Okay? If I put a drum of condoms here in the corner, we are not all going to lie down and start having sex.
As we hide our heads in the sand, some of the same people who say, no, me, I don't want an abortion, for them, they know where to go. When their children have an abortion, they know where to go. But there are some people, for them to penetrate UTH and enter that guy in emergency ward, they don't know how to go. So to give you a typical example, when we're at UTH, our guy in emergency ward is called CO3. From the experience the last 20 years, you find there will be a young girl or a couple, they are just hovering around there. They don't know who to talk to. So that's the kind of situation. But if they knew somebody, they would just go straight and meet somebody there.
Apparently satisfied, participants turned their attention to the law on abortion and its provisions. Several participants raised objections against the legal requirement for 3 medical personnel to offer their opinion before an abortion could be conducted, saying the situation on the ground precludes access to legal and safe termination of pregnancies.
In my constituency, there's no doctor. Doctors are in the Boma. So you can imagine people have to move over 50 kilometers, in some cases 100 kilometers, to access, the facilities.
The ratio of doctor to patient, we are failing by far. So it would be wishful thinking for someone to think at any given time there are always 3 doctors to sign. I have found myself in a situation whereby in the night I have to phone a doctor. Where are you? Please rush to the hospital. There's such a situation. So if just to attend to any other ailments is difficult, what about when we are faced with such a situation?
Some participants called for the review of the law, especially that it was initially passed back in the early 70s.
Perhaps the amendments that were done by retaining the provision which requires 3 doctors, perhaps that one is restrictive. Of course, given the fact that we have a shortage of doctors, so perhaps we should only insist on 1 health practitioner to make it easier, and not necessarily a specialist. I think that's the message you are trying to portray.
The Law Development Commission, a statutory organ operating under the Ministry of Justice, invited Zambia Medical Association to make relevant submissions to the organization as the process of law reform was actively underway.
There's still room for us to even get back to those contentious provisions of the PC that you're worried about, even if they were not earlier captured, or maybe perhaps the presentations that you made were not well captured. We can still revisit those and try and see how best we can accommodate this. Remember, the law is intended for everyone, not only for criminals, but even for those that want to see the world look better than it is.
The Ministry of Health has issued guidelines that give clarity to the ambiguity in the law on abortion so that those in need could enjoy the services.
Parts of this country where there's probably 1 doctor, that doctor is the only one. That they could perhaps sign, not perhaps, they would sign, they will consider that case as an emergency because they will be thinking, for example, that if they don't deal with that case, whatever part of the country they are, there's a possibility that this patient or client, in fact, doesn't find the next doctor because they can't travel to the next town and so on. But also there are provisions for other doctors within other districts who are able to give an opinion after they've been informed about the doctor in that particular area, so that they meet that legal requirement. And the standards and guidelines are very clear on how that is done.
Kapiri only had 1 medical doctor. And so because of looking at what the requirement under the Termination of Pregnancy Act, they had to refer most of the cases to Kawe. Now these people who were referred to Kawe couldn't even afford a bus or transport to get to Kawe. Then what happens? So those were the other issues. But with I think with the guidelines, I think that really helped. The trainings helped, especially with the change of attitude by the health service providers. Because the other problem was that some of these health service providers didn't even know about the Termination of Pregnancy Act, so they didn't understand anything. But with the training and I think that was really rolled out after the guidelines came out. It actually was rolled out countrywide, so that really helped.
Zambia Medical Association called stakeholder engagement meetings largely to share information on unsafe abortions in the country. Deaths arising from maternal-related complications are fairly high in Zambia, high enough to cause concern among health practitioners who have to deal with these cases oftentimes.
There's one lady, well-documented case at University Teaching Hospital who she came in bleeding. People said, oh no, go home, bed rest, avoid intercourse. Because sometimes people just come in bleeding, hoping you clean them out. But meanwhile, they say, no, it's threatened miscarriage, the fetus is still okay, go home. She tries harder at home. She comes in again, no, you're still okay, just do a scan, still not working. She came 3 times until the last time she had drunk acid, and she had to have a feeding tube to eat from, because of course the things there kind of gelled. So sometimes, and I always tell my young doctors, when someone comes in bleeding, ask them, is this a pregnancy you want to continue or not? Because we can give you medicine to help you keep the pregnancy or not.
Through cases that pass through the country's health system, one woman dies every 4 hours due to maternal-related complications. Unsafe abortions have been identified as one of the leading causes of these deaths. The Ministry of Health has estimated conservatively that Zambia experiences about 93,000 induced abortions annually, which include both safe and unsafe abortions. But some studies at bigger health facilities, like the University Teaching Hospital UTH, estimate that there are about 114,000 induced abortions annually. Out of these, a staggering 108,000 were considered as unsafe, clearly identifying the practice as needing urgent national attention.
If these young girls and the women, they are coming through and saying, we want to abort, can we attend to them? Because if we don't attend to them, someone in Kanyama, in Kalingalinga is going to attend to them. Because whether you like it or not, these people are going to abort. Aborting, they will abort.
I know that abortion goes on every day in Zambia, especially illegal abortions.
As Zambians, we owe it to ourselves to ensure that what we leave behind is a good legacy. The subject matter, which is very well presented, is a societal problem.
Some participants, moved by the statistics of dying women and girls, lamented that the notion of motherhood as a joy is threatened, requiring support from community leaders to arrest the situation.
The victims there, they are our subjects. These are the people who may not have access to good hospitals in our rural setup, even in our districts. Even when you have a hospital, that will be called a hospital. Certain facilities may not be found.
A notion exists that the promotion of safe and legal abortions is a Western agenda. But some medical practitioners question this belief in view of the traditional medicines, herbs, and novel methods that have been employed by Zambian women since time immemorial to induce abortions.
We may spend time pointing to the West and blaming them for everything that is happening in our country, or simply taking responsibility that we are doing this. I don't even know if the white people or the Western world even know Madame Bola or their other rules. They also have in their communities their own methods, but the mortalities from abortion-related complications are almost zero in their settings.
Many abortions were done traditionally, But those which were attended were just problems out of the traditional methods.
Then roots. Those roots are dirty. They are even taken to either to take by drinking, or the way we say it in my own language, kuzala.
Meaning?
Meaning wearing the powder or the damp water from those roots, so that it can penetrate and then spoil the pregnant. Or even taking it drinking, or even using it to porridge.
Yeah.
When it became clear that abortion was legal in Zambia and the service was available in health institutions, participants turned their attention to law enforcement officers, wondering why they do not arrest culprits, providers of unsafe abortions, and their clients.
There's a teacher who impregnated 5 girls in one school, and they were all, I think they were all in grade 7. And so when we went there, we found that that teacher had actually procured an unsafe abortion for one of the girls. So we actually went with the police, and Chief Copper was actually involved in the matter. And we found that this quack had run away. And in that community, a lot of people said, this is when the police have come, because we actually went to them and we told them that this woman has been doing this and a lot of people have lost lives.
As we speak here, you know, the law is also blind, if not ignorant.
Exactly.
All right? Makes provisions in which there's no provision for enforcement. And even some interventions require perhaps interventions outside the law, though the law must provide guidance for those interventions.
Other participants turned to the doctor for a solution to the problem of no arrests by the police, saying it's the medical personnel that have the information.
As they come in after you treat them, try to find out more, and probably you can find that maybe there's this one person who probably may even be stealing drugs from UTH, and he's been the one who has been supplying. So they try and take a keen interest and sort of interview them afterwards. What happened? No, in the sauna, so this there, and then if there's something fishy, you can bring in the police. I think it will help, instead of you just saying no, we do not police people. If I think there's more you can do.
There is a question of negligence which is settled in law and go captured by our Zambian laws. And there's a question of the duty of care which underpins the medical profession. Okay? Then there is a question of accomplices. For the 14-year-old girl will be as guilty as the person, the medical supporter who helped her.
Zambia Medical Association told participants that it was contrary to medical ethics for doctors to report their patients to the police, a response that meant the solution had to be sought elsewhere.
Medical ethics and the law. In general, as doctors, and as much as we uphold the law, to us, medical ethics are supreme. Doctors have gone to jail because of upholding medical ethics. If you come to me, you're a patient. Even if you killed someone out there, the moment you walk into the ward, you are no longer an accused. You are my patient. You are an accused to the police. You are not an accused to me. So there's also the issue of confidentiality. I will treat you with the same confidentiality that I treat a president, that I treat an ordinary person.
While some participants were blaming the criminal justice system for its failure to enforce the law, others were examining their own roles in society and what they could do to prevent unsafe abortions. Religious leaders took responsibility, saying as custodians of the moral well-being of their flock, they have slept at the post of duty.
The family comes number one, the father and mother. If we continue saying we are busy and when we can't find family time, we are to blame, and especially as church.
As ministers of the Word of God in the congregations, we should also look at teaching practical aspects of the theology that we hold on to. Because I think the tendency sometimes is to focus on the complexities of the theology, but we don't bring it down to the practicals. And like Father Mutale said, on issues to do with family, issues to do with what is the role of a father in a household, what is the role of a mother, what is the role of children.
Parents are not doing their part to let their children realize that parents can also be help or be friends to them in terms of these things. So I feel like one thing that they should bring out is not only advocating to these women who are pregnant to tell them that we've got health, we've got proper health or safe abortions here, but also to the parents to become more friendly and understanding, because these things happen and it may not be the girl's fault, but she knows that the parents are not understanding, so it gets difficult. Another thing is raising the issue of children, because you know these children are what's happening. One boy once said, children are no longer future leaders, they are present continuous leaders. So, you know, if children are affected now, what more in the future? So if you could also bring out the aspect of helping children with sexual reproductive health rights and services, it would better the issue of abortions, because at a young age, if you know something, you'll not depart from it when you get older.
The Muslim community practices social norms intended to prevent or minimize unwanted pregnancies, and in the process, the need to terminate a pregnancy.
You know what the Quran says about adultery? It doesn't say do not commit adultery. Fortunately, it says do not go near adultery. Where it starts from is from free mixing, and nowadays I'm sure all of us know you can prevent our kids. We can prevent our kids from this social media and all that, but believe you me, it's very hard. You need to plant something in their mind and heart that with or without your presence, the child has the fear of God at any time. And this is the only thing that can save them.
Zambia Medical Association told participants that the current reproductive health care services, including legal abortions, could be at risk should Zambia pass into law the clause in the draft constitution that defines life as beginning at conception. A survey of about 200 constitutions all the world reveals that 13 of them contain the clause that defines life as beginning at conception. 12 of these countries have a Catholic majority. In these countries, the application of the clause has led to the banning of the kind of reproductive health care services similar to those currently served in Zambia.
Let's look at an example of what happened. Activists' efforts to restrict contraception have been successful. In the Philippines, where the constitution protects life of the unborn child at conception, this provision was used in efforts to oppose a bill that would mandate family planning services in state hospitals. As a result, Manila City banned distributing of contraception throughout its public health system. In Argentina, in 2003, a provincial judge ruled in favor of a conservative Catholic organization and banned oral contraceptive and IUDs, that's the lupocopathy, as it's commonly known, because of their abortive properties. So constitution provision protecting right to life at conception would give decisions such as these a strong legal basis, in spite of their lack of scientific evidence.
In other instances, expectant mothers with complications have ended up dying as medical personnel cited the clause, life begins at conception.
So the 16-year-old's plight attracted worldwide attention. These are online, they can easily be accessed if you want to look at them. After she had to wait for chemotherapy because of an abortion ban in the Dominican Republic, doctors were hesitant to give her chemotherapy because such treatment could terminate the pregnancy. A violation of the Dominican Constitution which bans abortion. Some 20 days later, after she was admitted to hospital, she started receiving treatment, but she died because of late treatment.
Back in the 70s, the United States court seemed to have seen such developments and cautioned against defining when life begins, citing the controversial nature of the debate that arises whenever such a question was attempted.
The US court in 1973 said, we need not resolve the difficult question of when life begins. When those who are trained in respective disciplines of medicine, philosophy, and theology are unable to arrive at any consensus, the judiciary at this point in the development of man's knowledge is not in a position as to speculate the answer.
Some participants protested that the information presented was too graphic to be true, saying such things could not happen in Zambia.
Looking at what you've just presented, I think there's a bit of some exaggeration. That's what I think. For me, yes, those issues are there. And if you look at all those, like those when the other lady died, there was a danger to her life. And in Zambia, I believe that would have been attended to based on the law that is there at the moment. So I really don't really understand where, what it is that, why you want us to have, is it legal abortion, or, I'd love to really understand what it is. But according to me, I think the law is sufficient and has taken care of a lot of things, that you've spoken about. And you've brought cases, maybe to alarm.
Now, that provision, which we just pointed out, seeks to comply with that provision of Zambia being a Christian nation. Having said that area, I talked about two things which are so important. The duty of care and the whole concept of negligence. Then there is a third dimension of reasonableness. How reasonable is a particular action? For instance, never mind what the Constitution says. If a patient comes in and they are clearly dying, you have a duty of care. You can't say, but the Constitution says X, Y, Z. Because by the time you wake up to do something, the person is dead.
For some participants, the moment called for reflection and introspection, challenging the positions they've always held on the subject of abortion.
If people would be explained to the way you have, how it would impede other health services like IVU and people dying with babies that would have implanted in the fallopian tubes. With such information, I think even I have learned a lot which I didn't necessarily know before I came. And I didn't really understand why you were averse to the amendment, but after hearing what you have said, it even becomes more alarming if the amendment would go through than if the provision remained as it is in the current constitution. So thank you for that knowledge.
With respect to what you have just presented, Doctor, I think there is need to lobby the lawmakers, Parliament, so that we show them the figures that were earlier presented to us, how many women are dying, how many abortions we have, both unlawful or lawful, so that they can see the total picture, so that then they will be able to make a decision whether to allow that clause in the Constitution. Because without them understanding what is involved, they may ignorantly pass, and then we go into this problem. It means then if that Constitution clause is passed, it means all the things we are trying to do here, they will die off.
Some people believe, as we have heard here, that actually you are promoting abortion. So there is need to package this message properly and clearly so that many people can understand it. Because unfortunately, honorable members, the health profession and many other scientists base their decision based on scientific knowledge, or what they call evidence, even if it conflicts with our religious beliefs.
I want to say that I myself, as a person, I am a Catholic. And certain dogmas that are said in the Catholic, I think they've now been taught. For example, previously where we are coming, as a measure to prevent HIV/AIDS. Governments and other people, NGOs, civil societies, everybody else were encouraging the usage of condoms in order to protect life or to reduce. But the Catholics said, no, you don't have to do that. All you need to do is to abstain if you don't have a partner. Don't do it. Be faithful. But the Catholic Church reached a point where they accepted that in order to save life, a condom was necessary.
Addressing participants directly, Dr. Mjajati asked why Zambians should think what happened in countries with similar constitutional provisions could not happen to them.
With regards to the Article 28, the issue of when life begins or when life does not begin, as an association, we don't argue about when life begins. It may well begin at conception. But what we are talking about is the consequences of having it in the Constitution. Have we evaluated fully the consequences of having that clause in the Constitution? Can we say with confidence that Zambia is so unique that all these things that have happened in other countries, which have that same clause, cannot happen here?
Other participants responded by calling for the removal of the clause "life begins at conception" from the draft constitution in view of how it has been interpreted and applied in other parts of the world.
Us and the Minister of Health to work it flat out and sensitize our people over this issue, so that at last perhaps we influence the change of the law from where it is the proposed new constitution, to remove that part, so that there's need for women, even children, the girls, if there are complications, they must have a treatment at the hospital.
I think as lawmakers, it is always important that particularly in any issue, we must always take a rights-based approach, because that's what we are. We are lawmakers, and basically we are custodians of the law, and we should respect it as such. So we must always understand that people have the right to health.
Several participants invited Zambia Medical Association to visit their chiefdoms and their constituencies and share information on the magnitude of unsafe abortions in the country in current legal provisions regarding the practice directly with their subjects and the people they represent.
For me, I'm ready. If you come to me and say you want to go and meet your people, I'll go with you. I'll call a meeting at a particular area or a series of meetings, giving them times. Then you go there, and then I'll give the floor to you, the medical people. You say, this is the subject. I'll mention what the subject is all about, but you professional, you know how to talk to them about it.
I want to make an appeal and say that what if some of us here, we are church leaders, maybe we have meeting with few church leaders and invite you as medical association to come and brief us on this, so that many people will have information, especially the women, because when we don't have knowledge of these things, we tend to react negatively to the things that are supposed to be beneficial to us.
Zambia Medical Association has consulted far and wide, and what remains is the development of an informed and comprehensive approach to the practice of unsafe abortions.
Mayo,